usual thing. People just have to tell me if they can actually hear me and all the rest of it. That would be great. Welcome to the Azeroth Review. For those who are new to this, this is just a weekly live discussion that we'll be doing for quite a while now. Ignore the number that's on this particular one. We've, because it used to be called Tuesday Talk, then I started the number again when we called it this one. Hi, Kisasha, how are we doing? So, quite a lot changed. Looking at the background, I put the background there last week because, of course, exactly. Thank you, Grats in the Alpha. Last week I wasn't in the Alpha, but I knew we would be talking about it. Last week when I was off and had lots of time to do lots of stuff in there, and then Saturday morning woke up to find I was in the Alpha. It's like, oh, my holiday's over. I mean, obviously better than not being in at all, but it now means I was working down today and thinking, right, I need to do a video on that, I need to do a video on that, I need to do a video on that. I still need to test that, I still need to test that, I still need to test that. I could have done it all last week. Evening, Fraser, Augie, Mahal as well. So, yes, it's a little interesting. I've only done one video so far. I've done one on from the Alliance point of view, because that's the one I did first, of course. I've now done the Horde one. How many years till I can retire from work? We're not allowed to retire in this country. Actually, in most countries, I suspect you're not allowed to retire. Can't, basically. Can't. So, until this starts to pay me more than my job, which I can't see happening, but you never know, then no, I still have to carry on working. But I mean, it's not as bad as it could be with some. I don't know, is it? Is it as bad as some jobs? Because with some jobs, you'd get fewer holidays. I get more holidays. So, for example, in 5 weeks and a couple of days, I get some more time off. But then I have to work in that as well. I can't just put my feet up. And then there's work I always have to do outside of work time as well. I don't know, it's all really weird. But it could be worse. It could be. But so I've still got to do it from the Horde point of view. There is a certain amount of Horde bias, as those who are watching me do it. I was streaming it during our raid nights actually this week while I'm benched. So they expect me to teach when I'm 90. No, they expect me to be dead when I'm 90. They expect me to teach until I'm allowed a year's retirement. So the way it works, I was told this when I started my teacher training, and the first day of teacher training, we were told the average teacher dies 1 year after retirement. So when you're told that, you don't really look forward to retirement. I have a big fancy state pension. No, I won't. I will have a teacher's pension, but I've done a lot of weird jobs. They've all sort of been in teaching, but the bottom line is I haven't been paying into the teacher's pension all of my career because some of them were weird teaching jobs, not standard school or college jobs. So in actual fact, I won't retire on as much money as an average teacher, but it will still be a lot better than someone who's got to put up with state pension. Tauren Pally POV, what's that got to do with anything? Where's this Tauren Paladin come from? Or are you just randomly throwing out that because I haven't blocked the word Tauren? I have nothing against Tauren, by the way. They make absolutely fine druids. Just not really anything else that I can tell. Hi, Diablo. I'm not doing... Oh, yeah, no, the Horde... I did it as a Blood Elf. I'm not doing it as Tauren. That would be ridiculous. Ridiculous. But no, it was biased. It was absolutely biased. On the Horde, I noticed straight away that in what appears to be the same starting gear, I have more haste on my Blood Elf Paladin than my Human Paladin. And I was able to maintain more haste as I got the upgraded gear, the quest rewards from the zone. Now, you know, I always favour haste during levelling. Doesn't matter what's my best stat, you know, normally. I will always favour haste for levelling because you notice it when you lose it. Like, you'll lose all your stats as you level up because every time you ding, all the rate, you need more rating for 1%. So your percentages just drop down. They drop down. Because you never keep up with the gear. It's not possible. And so, like, if you lose some crit, you don't really notice. If you lose some mastery, you don't really notice versatility. Obviously, it's not as good, but you don't notice it. Haste, you notice, because it affects your cooldowns. So you notice that a lot. Or if you're a caster, it affects your cast time. And things like that, suddenly you're casting slower, or it's taking longer for things to come off cooldown. I notice that a lot, and it's jarring. I don't like it. So I always try and maintain my haste as much as possible while I'm leveling. So, yeah, I felt much better on the Horde Paladin than the Alliance one. Also, around that Horde zone, there's loads of little bonuses you can pick up that'll do things like give you, say, 50% leech or 50% haste and some damage bonus as well. All right, it only lasts 3 or 4 minutes, but, you know, they're there. Nothing like that on the Alliance side that I could see. And you get reincarnation for free. You do a particular quest in the Horde zone, and it gives you a buff that means every 30 minutes you can just reincarnate. What the hell? Oh, nothing special on the Alliance side. At one point, I got to use a blunderbuss with some silver bullets. That was it. All right, that's fine. It's not over. Oh, God. I don't think there'll be a queue at the post office when we're in our 70s. I think that'll be largely done away with. Well, the post office is largely been done away with already. You know, it'll all be electronic. I hope. Because the less I have to put up with people when I'm retired, the better. I mean, I'm just hoping to be dead. And it doesn't actually sometimes sound too bad to die a year after retirement. It just seems a bit of a bugger to pay into a pension. It's not. If Horde were the better faction, then you would think they'd need to give it to the Alliance as a bit of a, you know, a crutch. I'll take it as that. The best one shouldn't get the best rewards. But, hi, Mecca. There was also something, I don't want to talk about here, though, because it's spoilers, but there's also something about the very first quest on the Alliance, which basically gives you a very, very strong clue of what the pre-expansion event's going to be. But I want to do it on the Horde as well. I haven't done that one on the Horde yet, just to verify it. Because I reckon there's information there. But I need to do it on both, just to verify it. Which doesn't include what we already know is going to happen, which is a certain tree burning down and a certain city being ruffle stomped. Yeah, oh yeah, anything to do with Alpha, if it's got Alpha in the name, it's going to have spoilers. Because it's, yeah, it's, you know. But we're not going to go over that there. So I'm not going to go over any quest details or anything like that. Because, I mean, even though, like, you know, obviously people shouldn't do that either. There was some very major lore stuff on the Horde stuff as well. Like, the Alliance quests were fine. They were all right. But then you do the Horde quests, and it's, like, I was doing it last night, and I was thinking, hang on a minute, they're doing something a bit weird here. This isn't right. And then people were pointing out, oh, well, you can sort of square it with the Warcraft. Because it looked like it was contradicting the Warcraft Chronicles. So in other words, there's major lore on the Horde quests that doesn't appear in the Alliance quest, at least not on the zone I've done. Obviously, there's still 2 more zones for each of them to do, which I haven't done yet. And technically, the final quest on the Alliance I wasn't able to do because it seemed a bit bugged. But that's fine now. Hold on. Something's going a bit wrong here. Just the lighting there. That should be fine. But that's no, I like a bit of lore debate as well. But another thing. So if there are any rets here, I keep noticing it's quite good because I put a post because it's now time for me to try and before it's too late get Blizzard to change their mind on a few things. I'm sure I will fail again, but at least I'm going to try. So I put a post on both the North American and EU Paladin forums about these are the things I think we should. It wasn't like a list of everything I want because I know I'm not going to get it. It was a list of the things I want that I think we might get, which is all you can really do. And Yeah, it's got the same number of, roughly the same number of upvotes. They've been keeping within a few of each other on NA and EU. Although technically, the NA one should have significantly more because there are significantly more people who would have access to the NA forums than the EU ones that watched that video. But still, never mind. But so yeah, well, I mean, what I think everyone is waiting for is for some stuff on Azerite Armour to come through. Because the class discussion is always, when it comes to Alpha Beta, that's always the one that most people are mostly interested in. Because, well, one, it's their class. And two, the other stuff's usually okay, aren't they? Like, dungeons are mostly okay. Raids are usually pretty good. The leveling's usually pretty good. The artwork's usually very good, and it is again here. Everything else just sort of works. Maybe not PvP. I'm not getting into all that. I have no idea. But class, mind you, even when it's PvP, it's the classes that tends to be the main criticism, isn't it? Apart from the fact there's nothing to do with PvP that's worth doing, in my opinion. But that's a different matter. But yeah, and then because they leave, hi guys, they leave classes till last to do, it means you don't really, like, you can imagine at the moment going, okay, it's really crap now with how it is. And other people saying, potentially Blizzard themselves, yeah, but you're not factoring into account the Azerite Armour. Well, no, we're not, because we don't have it. And even when it starts coming in, I bet you we don't get, unless it's like the legendaries. Like with the legendaries, there's a special tab, obviously, in your adventure journal, whatever, where you can see all the legendaries on offer. Now, if there's a similar sort of thing for Azerite Armour when that comes in, then that's fine. We can probably have a look at it then. But it's not in yet. If Azerite gear is anything like legendaries, they're going to be very spec defining. Maybe. At least you'll be able to farm the Azerite pieces, I assume. I mean, it's still largely guesswork because it's not in. It's not in the alpha yet. It's not even in the files. That's what makes me think it's not going to be in the alpha for a while. It might be. It might be in next week or this week or something. But the thing is, there's stuff in the files that isn't in the alpha, that you can't actually use in the alpha. Like professions. There's stuff on professions in the files, but you can't test the professions at the moment in the alpha. And there's little things like that. Like, for example, in the files are the class buffs, the class auras. But they're not always in the game. Like the mage one's in. The mage class buff is in. But the paladin class buff isn't in, for example. Do I think Blizzard will add another holy power builder to the rotation? They may do. But they don't look like that. I don't think they will, if I had to guess. Simply because they've said that the spec, it's one of those specs which is like the majority, they say is not in need of any great adjustment. So that sort of suggests not. The rotation is, I don't think it's as slow as some people make out, but it's not good. It's not a good rotation. Just how far do you think Jaina will go to defeat the Horde? Well, I mean, hopefully this isn't a spoiler, but she is, in a scene that you do see in the alpha, pretty clearly anti-Horde. She hasn't softened her stance, shall we put it that way. Now, in terms of how far she's prepared to go, so far in the game, as far as we can tell, she's only been prepared to either refuse them aid or take them on in what might be considered honourable military combat. We don't know that she's prepared to do anything really atrocious. So we have to still work on the assumption that she wouldn't commit any atrocities, even though the thing that made her anti-Horde was like a war crime against her people. I will. And Lays. So, yeah, I don't know. I mean, we haven't seen enough of her in the alpha, other than just to know that, yeah, she still doesn't like the Horde. In fact, we should team her up with Illyria, because they'd get on like a house on fire. They both hate the Horde. We know what happened last time Jaina tried to take on the Horde in military combat. Do we? What am I missing? No, that was... She... No. Jaina was not... Okay, I didn't actually read that novel, so I don't know the things around it. But she wasn't... She was pro-Horde before that, or pro-peace with the Horde, should we say. You got to bear in mind, she allowed Thrall to kill her own father. And she wasn't... She didn't hate her father. She was quite sad at the prospect. She did it for the sake of peace. In Wrath of the Lich King, when Varian and Thrall faced off against each other, again, she stopped them fighting. So, unless there was something in that novel, I've forgotten the name of it now, but the one that sort of explained that whole manor bombing thing, which I didn't read. So unless there's something in that, I don't think she was planning to take on the Horde at all. I think, you know, the Horde just decided it didn't want an alliance outpost on Kalimdor, and it couldn't do a lot about Darnassus. Or it didn't think it could do a lot about Darnassus. Apparently, someone has now worked out that Darnassus is basically wood, and that a match will do the trick. We just don't know how that's going to work out exactly. So since the last Azeroth review, they've hotfixed the dungeon boosting. Yes, so I gather. I haven't done that yet. So yeah, you get less. So if you team up with someone who's like way higher level than you, you will get much less experience. I think it's supposed to be something like 10% of the experience. But you will... I still may boost a few characters. I don't know. It's quite weird. I was thinking I would anyway, because for the quests alone, it's probably still worth it. But it's just not worth repeating. I think all Blizzard wanted to do was stop people repeatedly boosting someone through stockades. Which is not the sort of thing... Even though I boost my own characters through dungeons, even I wouldn't just keep going back and back and back through them. That just is dull. Nomi burns down Darnassus. That's possible. That's plausible. I don't think that is what's going to happen. I wouldn't put it past him. Need a third faction option in WoW. Well, and I mean, I'm all in favour of neutral factions, as I say. I'm not sure a third faction that's neutral is necessarily the way to do it. I think it's better just to have neutral factions when it comes to races. And if people want to say, you know, if they want to roleplay their guild and say this guild is only for the traditional Alliance races, then that's fine. They can just make sure that their members are only of Alliance races. I mean, there are people that have done that. There are people that, for example, have guilds that are like purely Night Elf. You know, they only allow Night Elves in it and things like that. That's fine. If they want to be racist, that's okay. The finishing XP bonus is still there. Yes, so yeah, someone did say that. So I suppose if you do the bonus bosses as well, if there are any. I'm not sure if it's worth it in Nomragon, because there are bonus bosses there. But like the first one just takes forever. That bloody gnome takes forever to get anything done. Agree that leveling should take a while in a new MMO. It's why for so long, it's so many levels. Well, it should take a certain amount of time. Yeah, it shouldn't be a quick weekend thing, granted. But it does take way too long. Way too long. Did someone say Vulpara? I don't think anyone did. In reference to what? The only Vulpara I've really seen is in the dungeon. There was a dungeon boss, I think there was one. Although I only noticed it when it was dead. It just looked like a small pirate. And then when it was died, it's like, oh, it's a fox person thing. So I haven't seen a lot of them yet. But then, you know, I've only done one zone. If they go through with the potential Draenor orcs fighting for the Alliance. Yeah, I saw that. What's that about? Draenor orcs for the Alliance? No. How does that even make any sense? I've seen a couple of people doing videos about that. I don't get the theory behind that. The goblins will be selling Azerite Alliance behind the Horde's back. No, they won't, no. They seem to know, you know, I mean, given that these guys blew up Ashara to make it look like the Horde symbol, they seem to be, I know they're money driven, but, you know, they seem to be very pro-Horde. You could see Vulpara as a neutral race. Well, if they were going to be a player race, then sure, like the Pandaren. But they're not really neutral, are they? Even the Pandaren, they're only neutral from the point of view both factions can have them. But your Pandaren is still either Alliance or Horde. And I imagine that makes no sense anymore. I've not actually done a monk recently, but I'm guessing that with monks, it's still Varian that introduces you to the Alliance and Garrosh that introduces you to the Horde. Now, correct me if I'm wrong. I mean, both of those are dead now. They might have updated, someone let me know, but I bet they haven't. Potentially Saurfang recruits them after he's had it with Sylvanas. Yeah, but it doesn't necessarily follow he'd join the Alliance. They, you know, storyline-wise, they're surely never going to join the Alliance. I mean, even Thrall, like, he's pro-peace as well between the Horde and Alliance. Even he will always side with the Horde. Do I think that all melee should get a cooldown that is damaging an area around the player that is static? No, why? A cooldown that is damage... what, an AoE? Why? Saurfang defecting. Like, he might... There might be a civil war within the Horde, just like there was with Garrosh, but they're not going to suddenly side with the Alliance and become Alliance. I mean, even when they teamed up the Alliance and the Horde in Siege of Orgrimmar, they were still of that faction. Some of the Datamine stuff has Saurfang becoming friendly with Anduin. Well, again, that's possible because Anduin is, again, pro-peace. Even though, obviously, he's ordered an assault on Lordaeron, but I imagine that's in retribution for Donassus. The Draenor Orcs lost faith in the Horde. Well, wouldn't they just make their own Horde? I mean, put it this way. Can you actually imagine Blizzard announce that Draenor Orcs are going to go live as an allied race as soon as BFA launches, okay? And they're going to be Alliance. Can you imagine, you know, if you thought the flying shitstorm in WoD was bad, can you imagine the scale of this? It would be mental. It's something that no Alliance player is realistically asking for. And certainly no Horde player is. Hi, Pinky. I'm fine, thank you, today. I'm a lot better than I was the last couple of days. There's... I don't even... No. I can see no reason, gameplay or lore-wise, why Alliance would get any type of Orc. I've done Siege of Orgrimmar Blood in the end. After defeating Garrosh, Jaina tells Varian, now is the time to finish the Horde. Yes, she does. Well, you say just as bad as Sylvanas. Depends what you mean by that. Because the Alliance and the Horde were enemies at that point. No one's saying Sylvanas is bad for attacking the Alliance. It's more the fact that she's not been entirely honest with her own people. Can't be bothered with another Horde civil war. Well, I think one is inevitable at some point. I'm not saying this expansion. Because that's just the nature of the Horde. They are a disparate group of parties who don't really share common purpose. Apart from, potentially, the Orcs, or at least the Orcs that were loyal to Thrall. I think Thrall, Vol'jin, I nearly said that, and Cairn had common purpose. I think, you know, they, you know, so the Ator and the Darkspear Trolls and the, you know, Orcs, they sort of fit as a faction. Everything else that's joined them has done so because, what? You know, the Forsaken, I really don't know how that was supposed to... I know why they made Forsaken Horde, but story-wise, it's always been a bit dodgy. At best, it's a horde of convenience. So, yeah, inevitably, because they don't have this common purpose, the different factions within that faction, you're inevitably going to have Barneys. because it's based on, like, if the Horde was to change to having a council-based leadership instead of a war chief, then they might get along better, but they don't. They have to have this figurehead who is in charge of them. That inevitably is going to lead to conflict. It can't not. Remember in ICC, Varian let Saurfang get the corpse of his son. Well, of course. But people in war do that. You know, people in war will show respect for the dead, even when they're enemies. As long as they've got some honour. They kind of did that, the Iron Horde. We fought them alongside Doc Brown, his trusted DeLorean. Yeah, I really didn't like the time travel thing. Has always been a little bit dodgy in World of Warcraft, but you combine it with an alternate universe, it's like, no. People didn't break a sweat over Nightborn going Horde because there was no reason why they shouldn't go Horde. Why would they be Alliance? Nightborn, they could have gone either way with it and no one would have batted an eyelid. Whereas Orcs are Horde. Even the Draenor Orcs are Horde. The Draenor Orcs in Draenor or Outland, they joined very happily again with their Azeroth Horde brothers and sisters. So, you know, they already, now that they've met up again after the portal was opened, they already identify as part of the Horde. Even the ones who didn't pass through the portal. You think the gameplay and reaction is that all that really matters for Draenor Orcs? They can invent whatever reason they like. Well, they frequently do invent all sorts of mad reasons for things. But there's just some things that they would never get away with. No. I don't even see a benefit in it. I see no benefit. They've already sort of implied that Draenor Orcs are going to be a thing. Only the Horde players are happy at this news. So it's like pissing off more than half of your player base without really delighting the other half. Story-wise, Forsaken should be their own faction, yeah. I mean, you can sort of see it. You know, maybe they view themselves as not strong enough to cope on their own. They know that the Alliance would want Lordaeron back, so they join up with the Horde as a, you know, okay, I see you're the enemies of the Alliance. We are as well. We'll team up in support. You support us in Lordaeron, and we'll support you wherever the hell you want to go. That's okay. But then that is an alliance of convenience, pardon the pun. You know, they don't have common purpose other than mutually assured survival. That's it. I mean, most of the Horde don't even like the idea. Most other races don't like the idea of undead. Like even Garrosh, where there was that scene, wasn't there, where Sylvanas was showing off her new powers. And Garrosh said, well, you'd better not do that on any of our Fallen. You know, do it on the Stormwind if you must. But you're not raising any dead orcs. Need a Tauren leader for the Horde. Well, no, I mean, that would be the least offensive version. But Bane seems a bit of a softie to me. I don't really see he's got it in him, do you? Who was the leader of the Horde in Vanilla? It was Thrall. And he's stopped being war chief for some boneheaded reason. Draenor Orcs as alliance would be a massive twist. Yeah, but it would be I don't even have words to describe. Even Blizzard, they've done some mad things. They're not that mad, really. So Thrall was the one you needed for the achievement, yes. You're an orc and you identify as an Alliance Night Elf. Well, hi Frozenmans. I mean, Blizzard seem fairly sure that they do not want to allow any sort of neutral faction attitude to PvE. So... I don't know with Saurfang. See, Saurfang has a lot of respect amongst the Horde, sure. But he always seems to me a bit more... he seems to me more of a lieutenant than a captain. Like, he's got enough respect and leadership skills to be a leader of a group, but not to be the one at the very top. It's sometimes said of people that some people have like certain leadership qualities, but maybe not for the very top. They always need someone superior to them. I get this feeling with Saurfang that he's that sort of person. You know, he needs someone, he needs another level of management above him. He's a good enough leader, but not to be the one at the very top. Because I doubt he could do with the admin. Well, I don't see why Thrall couldn't have joined the Earthen Ring while still like other members of the Horde joined the Earthen Ring and they're still members of the Horde. They just aren't outright hostile to members of the Alliance, that's all. I mean, he has never been outright hostile to members of the Alliance himself. The logical choice, making Sylvanas, war chiefs, clearly a sign of something happening with the Horde. I don't even know what they were doing with that. Obviously, they've planned it. They never just plan the storyline for one expansion. They say, and I believe them, that they plan it years ahead. So there will be a whole story arc with Sylvanas as leader. But I don't know where they're going with it. Isn't lore in WoW a bit like the royal family in UK nowadays? It was a thing in days gone, but now not so much. I'm not sure it was ever really a thing. If we're honest, this idea of retconning and changing lore around and stuff like that has always been there. Like the story that we think we know, that is the story of Warcraft 1, wasn't actually the story of Warcraft 1. You know, there were things that were changed. Like Warcraft 1, there was virtually no story at all. What story there was completely changed when they wrote the novels, from which we get the more detailed story that we now have. So I remember Medivh, it was, for example, he was described as a warlock and you were dispatched to kill him. He wasn't, he wasn't the guardian as such, and he wasn't someone that they didn't discover for some time was a bit evil. He was a warlock out and out. But they embellished that, of course, in the novels and made it much more interesting. The lower told Vol'jin it must be Sylvanas. Well, we're going to find out more about that, of course, because Thrall's supposed to be taking his ashes there, so Vol'jin is going to get a bit more story, isn't he? In the War Crimes book, he said that he could not fulfill both duties at once. Oh, I'm sure they put in a line to explain it, but to me it just means, yes, you can. Of course you can. What duties did he have as part of the Earthen Ring? All he had to do was stand near the maelstrom swinging his arm around. Well, that's fine. He could have done that. All he ever did in Orgrimmar was sit in his throne anyway. It's fine. But anyway, whatever. Think for Wad and maybe Miss, lore went somewhat out the window. But hiring the biggest Warcraft novel author, there is your head of story development. Here's the thing. Is she really head of story development? I still cannot shake the belief that one of the big problems with Warcraft stories is that there isn't a competent person in overall charge of, say, continuity. I have the distinct impression... No, I don't think they're using her as a figurehead. I think that's actually her title, and I think that's actually her job. What I also think, though, is that there is a superior who is like acting as an editor, and she'll be coming up with stuff, and they'll be looking at, oh yeah, but wouldn't it be great if we had a squirrel called Nutkins in it? You know, that sort of lunatic. And I suspect I know what that lunatic's name is, but not naming any names. So I strongly suspect there's interference with her work. Obviously, it's not going to be ridiculous levels, otherwise she would quit, like any self-respecting author would do. But I suspect it's enough. Like, for example, I query why when they set a release date for Before the Storm, the novel that's based on what's supposed to be happening now, why it was changed. Right? Usually, I mean, there's a number of things that can cause that. printing issues, production issues of some kind. They're big publishers. You know, Blizzard produce a lot of books. So I don't believe that's it. So the only other thing could mean, potentially, a rewrite was requested of certain sections of the book. Just a tip, Shamans are going to be the best class in BFA because their class hall is called the Heart of Azeroth. Is it? I thought it was the Maelstrom. I'm pretty sure it's called the Maelstrom. I've got a Shaman in there. I'm pretty sure it's just the Maelstrom. Their order hall is on the cheapest bit of real estate on Azeroth. It's a rock next to the largest permanent vortex in the middle of the ocean. I'll take your word for it, but, you know, I'm pretty sure that it just says, when I click on the portal, it says the Maelstrom. And I don't really see, you know, lore-wise, Shamans being treated particularly well, because like I said, if you look at all of the order halls, and from a real estate point of view, how much their locations would be worth, I can't think of anything more worthless than, you know, storm-battered rock in the middle of the ocean. I mean, who would buy that? It's like buying a house on the edge of a cliff, which some people do for some mad reason. Yeah, but location-wise, the Hunter Lodge is in a prime location. You know, you can well imagine that the land it's built on is worth a fair bit to a property developer who wants to, you know, build luxury condos or something. They're closest to Azeroth's core, close to the... No, they're not close to Azeroth's core directly. They're closer to its wound. Except there's another wound now in Silithus. No one thought to build their order hall near there. The warrior class order hall, I'm sure, is worth an absolute fortune. Absolutely. I mean, the travel alone, you know, they're a few seconds away from every zone on the Broken Isles. That's always a big selling point, isn't it? How far away from local immunities? 5 seconds away from anywhere you want to get to. The priest class hall, yeah, okay, that's but inside's at least nice. It's not a storm battered rock. It's quite nice inside. Let's have a little look, see what other. Well, you could argue that they're defending it against the Fel, of course. What the hell? Don't even know what that's about. Yeah, but Warlock's quite nice. With no convenient way of getting there, got portals. If there's one thing that Warlocks are pretty good at, it's summoning people to them. In fact, in theory, like now, when I first got into the Legion Alpha, you could instantly teleport to your order hall from wherever. You know, like we have the whistle now, there was a similar thing that would just take you to your order hall. And they had various cool ideas of getting there. Like the Hunter, for example, an eagle would grab you and take you. And there was one... All of the classes had a version. Then they scrapped it, which is a bit of a pain in the ass. Although, to be fair, at the start of Legion Alpha, it was needed. Because you also couldn't use artifact power tokens unless you were at the altar. It wasn't just that you had to be at the altar to put a trait on. You had to actually do that to put artifact power on. Obviously, they changed that. That was, you know, that was a bit of a nightmare, that. But if anyone should have kept that one, really, it should have been the Warlocks. You know, as if their minions are summoning them to the order hall. So Warlocks, I think, should have got to keep that one. As a bit of flavour, as Blizzard would say. The Druid one, it looks okay, but it's a nightmare to get around because it all looks the same. It's like someone, you just say to someone, oh, where's the nearest mailbox? Oh, it's over there by that tree. Huh. In fact, where's anything? Everything. It's next to that tree. There aren't any portals in the Order Hall that you see. Hold on, which portal? There's a portal in the sewers. That's where the portal is. The warlocks, you see, they have to hide it because technically warlocks are not... They're not really appreciated in society. So everywhere you see any warlocks, they're always in the murky, like, black markety areas. So in Stormwind, they're underground. In Ironforge, they're in that dark little passage where no one of good repute would go. In Orgrimmar, they're underground. So in Dalaran, they have to be underground as well. Warlocks are not liked. Which makes it all the stranger that the lore has been over the last few expansions to make our character more and more important. Like, you're even called a general in Warlords of Draenor, and that equally applies to the warlock characters, when warlocks are shunned in both Horde and Alliance society. I'm not sure which is my favourite one. The rogue one's pretty good because you can access it from various parts of Dalaran, and it's relatively compact. The paladin one is also decent. But yeah. How's my post regards EU and NA doing? It seems to be doing okay. I was just actually, let's just refresh it. So on the North America side, if it will work, let's just refresh it on both of them, and then I can see. So on NA side, it's got 86 upvotes, and it's onto the 4th page with responses. And on the EU side, it's 89 upvotes with 3 pages. So more responses on NA, but slightly fewer upvotes. I've not had any replies to the class buffs one I've done, but to be fair, I put that in the alpha forums, so only people with alpha would be able to post on that anyway. You meant like portal to Stormheim or portal to Asuna or Suramar, not the planet. Oh, well. No, mages do portals, warlocks do summons. So you should be able to go to the Warlock Order Hall, you know, just click your fingers, get your minions to summon you there. No one's saying you should be able to then go from there wherever you like. That's a different thing. The Hunter one suits them, but I'm not sure. It's just a big pain in the arse, the Hunter one, because on any other class, it's also built in a prime flight path, and the number of times it chucks me to Nessingwary's camp because I've flown over there. Druid is your favourite since you could fly in it. Yes, but that's because you need to fly in it because it's so big and unwieldy. Right? Other ones are much more compact. Like the Paladin one, everything you need is just like, well, thankfully, a wheelchair ride away. The only thing that's even mildly out of the way is the altar to upgrade your weapon. And even then, you don't have to wonder where it is. It's down at the end of the... feel like since you basically meet a member of your class hall in every region as a warlock, you should be able to like, hey, I'm your boss, summon me to your location. Yeah, but warlocks, again, they're not supposed to be out and about. They don't like the sun, and other people don't like them. So they're supposed to be a bit sly. They're supposed to be sneakier than rogues, really. Try flying to Acheris. Yeah, but as a DK, you do get an instant summon there and back, because you've got your Death Gate. I don't think anyone is going to have much sympathy for Acheris. Because much like the monks and Death Knights both get to port to and from instantly. Well, with a cast time. Oh, when you're not a DK. Why would you want to go there as not a DK? Because you're not supposed to be able to go to other people's order halls anyway. It's not that the Druid one's that large, although it is a fair old size. It's that there's very few landmarks. You have to sort of know where things are. I spent ages running around it on my level 101 druid trying to find stuff. I tried to find the quartermaster. That was not straightforward. And there's no guards telling you where it is. For April Fool's Day, we start a petition to have the Paladin Order Hall contain a handicap accessible poster. I don't know. Do you think they'll make all classes super immobile in BFA? No. No, I don't. And I think the ones that aren't, the ones that get to stay super mobile, will have a big advantage. But then we also know which ones those are going to be. It's the ones that already have a big advantage. You can't port from Order Hall to other places as a decal. Well, you can port back to where you came from, can't you? Just go back through your gate. So let's have a look. For BFA, for the class buffs, if every spec got them, what happens when you got, for example, one Holy, one Ret, and one Prop Paladin? Does this system help the other specs? Yeah, I am actually going to do a video on it. I need to create some props for it to properly highlight it. But I did do a post on the Alpha forum about the exact problems. Because obviously I think it's going to be especially bad for Ret Paladins. You don't even need a Prop Paladin to make it especially bad for Ret Paladins. But there are other specs that can be badly affected by it as well. So the class buff system is some... In fact, I was a bit sarcastic in the post. Because I said it in it at one bit. I said... Because I was basically asking Blizzard to explain themselves. And in one bit I said, I'm not actually asking for class buffs to be removed. You know, why remove something just because it isn't needed and causes a lot of trouble? But I doubt they'll see the funny side of that. But class, I don't think... It's one of those things I needed to... I know nothing's going to happen with the post. No one's even responded to it. But at the same time, I needed to have made the post so that in a year's time, if it causes trouble, I can go, ah. And if it doesn't cause trouble, I shall just keep it quiet and not say anything. That's the good thing about, you know, being basically just being obnoxious on a forum. You know, if you were right, you get to go back and go, well, I said this, you see. And if you were wrong, you just don't say anything. No one remembers. Because no one's responding to it. Druids are still looking extremely mobile. Druids will always be sort of okay. Rogues will always be good. Rogues' mobility will always have good mobility. Warriors, obviously, still. Mages will. Demon Hunters, by necessity, will. That can't be helped. Admittedly, their movement is also, you know, ideally used offensively. It's a bit like, you know, with me, my defensives, or one of my defensives, has to be used offensively. With Demon Hunters, their mobility needs to be used offensively. But nonetheless, they do have it. Monks, I guess. I mean, there's several classes where they can't completely take the mobility away. Like, they're never going to take roll away or flying serpent kick away from monks. They're not going to take heroic leap or charge away from warriors. You know, they're not going to take... there's several classes where they're not going to take it away. Thinking about going feral in BFA. Need to play it first. Well, yeah, you should. I mean, I'm going to have a go at trying as many different classes as I can now that, you know. And it's a good time to do it as well, because with there only being one zone for each faction available, now that I've done the Alliance and the Horde zone through, you know, the next time I do I've got something I want to test that doesn't involve doing those again. But then when I've finished the testing I want to get done, I'm just going to do them all again, but on different classes. And change the specs around, perhaps. Maybe every time I level up, I'll change to a different spec on it and see how it feels. Why did Paladins get horsey? Class fantasy. What was their mobility spell before that? We had several. We had 3. They were all talents. We've never had a baseline movement speed. But we had 3. Pursuit of Justice, which basically gave you a passive movement speed plus extra depending on how much holy power you had. There was Speed of Light, which was just a a speed boost. And then there was Long Arm of the Law, which is what a lot of parties want brought back, which is when you use Judgment, it speeded you up quite a bit. It was actually quite useful on some fights. It was not very good for corpse runs, though, because I noticed this. There was a time when in a raid, you would have little critters. Ideal for Long Arm of the Law, you just judge them, speed boost. But then they seem to remove that. You don't really get many critters in raids now. Occasionally you do. Although I've not noticed in Legion because you can't use them anyway. Do I think with all the class buffs coming back, the vanilla system could work in which you could only have so many at one time? No. It's not really worth it. I mean, they had to sort of limit it a bit in vanilla, apart from the fact there were 40, and lots of people had lots of buffs and debuffs. And, you know, the system could only cope with so many. But I don't see... I mean, there's various mobility ones. I mean, Paladins did have Turalian's Might, which lasted for all of about 2 weeks in the Legion Alpha. Your guild, just got a 930 unsullied piece of gear, plus 50 item levels. Well, was it a good one? That's the main question. Next question. For the class buffs, is it a good idea to fix the problem with the other specs being better versus if the 3 different roles? If I'm honest, like usually I like to think that I can think of a solution for things. I cannot think of any solution with class buffs that addresses my 2 main concerns with class buffs. Well, no, one of them. One of them I can see a solution to. I have one issue in that some of the class buffs are DPS or healing boosts, as in throughput ones. Some of them are defensive. An offensive class buff will always be more useful than a defensive one. You know, across a tier. And you know, my class has got a defensive one. Not the only one to get a defensive one, but it has got a defensive one. So in a situation like that, Blizzard will just say, oh, they're all useful in these situations. But it's like, yeah, but these guys get one that's useful in every situation. I get one that's useful 5 times an expansion. Thanks. But in terms of the main problem with class buffs, in that it will, anything that informs roster choice that's based on the class you play as opposed to the player. You know, I am a big fan of bring the player, not the class, which although it was a saying at one point, I don't think it's ever truly been the case, but at least they tried. Whereas now, why is my Twitch gone a bit funny? Oh no, it's working again now. Whereas now it's they don't even care about that. You know, in fact they actively want to encourage you to bring one of each class. But bringing one of each class basically means that some people in a raid, even if they're one of your best players, will not be invited to the roster. And I know, like, people in very highly progressed guilds will go, well, you just need to get better, because it's a different world with that. Because I've been in very good guilds as well myself. And in a situation like that, you often don't need as much utility as some others, because the players just play properly. You know, most of the utility you actually need on a raid fight is to compensate for people not playing as well as they might otherwise. Which means on the other end of the scale, if you've got a guild of people who aren't very good at mechanics, you actually need to get as many useful utility classes in as you can get. And there you're absolutely going to have people on the bench that just don't play that class. Restricting it to, say, 7 buffs in Mythic allows to bring the player, not the class, to a certain extent. Well, okay, going from 12 to 7 would improve it, but you know, you've still got an issue because there's 2 sides to the scale. I mean, it's easy to look at it, and it's natural to look at it from the point of view of you might bench someone who's actually a very good player and playing the wrong class. But the converse is also true. It also means that you might have a particular class that has that really good class buff, so they must be in the raid. If you have one of that class in your guild, but they're not a very good player. They've got a guaranteed raid spot. This person who might wipe you every 3 wipes might have their name on it, and the other 2 being shared amongst everyone else. But every 3 wipes, this guy is going to wipe you, several times a night to the same shit because they're just not a very good player. But you've got to take them because they play that class. That's almost as bad as leaving good players out. Having to take bad players who will just wipe you time after time after time and massively delay your progress. That can be as bad. What about class stacking? Well, class stacking's never going to be good. Class stacking was never, ever a good thing. But yeah, Ian is very much more bring the class, not the player. Yeah, which as a former raider is a very surprising thing to say. But I know some people are going to say, well, he still raids. Well, I don't know what he raids. I'm not sure we can blame Ian Hazakostas for I know he's certainly not gone back to it, but the bring the player, not the class was killed before he became game director. It was killed before he even became assistant game director, so I don't think we can blame him. I mean, we can blame him for the fact that he's perpetuating it. It says, obviously, you're going to put your best raiders in whenever you can. Not always. No, this is not always the case. Because here's the thing, you're assuming that all raid leaders will always take what is the roster that they think is going to have the best chance of killing that boss. But the thing is, until you've killed a boss, you can never be a complete expert in it. So you might be wrong. With the best will in the world, you might really think about it, and you might come to the wrong conclusion. You might overestimate how much worth some utility is on a player who keeps wiping you, and you might underestimate just how much a very flexible player might bring to it. There was a situation, I ended up leaving this guild actually, there was a situation in WoD, in the guild that I was in for most of the expansion, on Zul'Harak, and I wasn't in on Zul'Harak, and I thought, this is madness, because I'd be really good at, interrupting the imps on Zul'Harak. And I felt justified, because when I did leave, I joined another guild that was also at Zul'Harak, and lo and behold, I was the one doing the vast majority of the interrupts on the imps, which is the thing that keeps wiping you, and I knew it would be. And sure enough, it was what kept wiping them as well. It wasn't, but he wanted to bring in every class he could that could do the solo soak of the void things. I can't remember the name of them. But you didn't need loads of people, you just needed a few to do that. But he thought, well, we need this utility to be able to deal with that mechanic. I'll bring everyone I can that can do that. So you sometimes get people, and this was in a decent guild as well. This wasn't a shit guild. Chasing World 100, and but nonetheless, you can get those thought patterns, probably better, relatively high end, so you can imagine the sort of incorrect decision you can have made lower down. You blame Ian for everything that's wrong in your life. Oh, that's not nice. I feel sorry for him sometimes, because at least, I'll give this to him, at least he tries to engage. He's still got that same defensive them against us attitude that I think has pervaded at Blizzard for some years now, or at least within the WoW development team. But at least he does, which he didn't have to. No one forced him to. In fact, it was his idea. He does these live Q&As and he does explain himself. And when you explain your philosophy about something, you do open yourself up to criticism. Because if you don't explain why you're doing something, it's always very difficult to form a coherent argument against it. Like at the moment, it's very difficult, though not impossible, but it's very difficult to form a coherent argument for why here's the thing at the moment, and I'm not the only person of this view. I know some proper good theory crafters who are also of the same view. So in Legion, Blizzard did a massive redesign of almost every spec in the game. And they also brought in artifacts. Now, they're now trying to tell us that by just removing the artifact traits, what's left is still a decent spec. Which is nonsense, because they were integrated, they were put together. But if I start arguing that that's a load of nonsense, Blizzard could turn around and say, but you haven't seen Azerite Armour yet. And because they're not explaining why they think the spec designs can manage without the artifact traits, it's very difficult to make an argument against it. So the fact that he does explain his philosophy on some things, not everything, he opens himself up to being attacked on those philosophies. So I think he's fine. Do I think he gets too much stick? I don't think he gets too much stick, because I think in his position, he should invite it. Like anyone who's on the internet, you need to be able to invite stick. I do. I don't mind. If I think someone's trolling me, I will just ignore them. If I don't think they're trolling me and they're just criticising me for something, I will either look at it and go, actually, they might be right, or I will say, no, I think you're wrong, because anyone on the internet needs to understand that. Or anyone in a public-facing job needs to understand that. So I don't think he gets too much stick. And he is the boss after all. But at the same time, you know, I do think he's at least trying to engage. I think he could do more. But I think he's doing better than his predecessor, should we put it that way. Indeed, the face of the game, and that's in the job description, but it's also something he's done himself. His predecessor never did live Q&As like he does. That was his idea. He did that. So, you know, that's pretty good. The only times his predecessor ever did anything like that was at BlizzCon. You know. So no, I don't think he gets too much stick. I just think, you know, I just think that he is at least trying and should be given credit for that. Even though he should also still be given stick. We're customers. We're entitled to give stick. Some way that when something goes wrong in the US, everyone turns to the president, even if it was 90% not him. Well, indeed, exactly. I mean, I think people... The thing is, presidents traditionally don't do anything to dispel this myth either. The president doesn't actually have an awful lot of power. I mean, it's quite easy to see, the president of the US, whenever you've got a president who's of one party and a different party controls the House of Representatives, you can see how little power the president has. When they have the backing of the party in the Senate and Congress, well, that's a different matter. Even then, though, you know, because, I mean, the weird thing is, the president in the US is very different to the Prime Minister in the UK. The Prime Minister in the UK is voted for by the party members and MPs and stuff. Whereas the US President isn't voted for by congressmen and senators. So it's a bit... So even when they are of the same party, it doesn't necessarily mean they agree either. But anyway. What if Azerite Armour just contains 90% of the current artifact traits? Well, the question then becomes, how easily can you get the traits you want? Because let's say that was true, okay? So let's say the Azerite Armour, they didn't come up with any new traits, which I don't believe. I think just for the sake of not wanting to be accused of... Here's the thing. If Azerite traits were not, or even some significant proportion of previous artifact traits or legendary abilities, which they easily could, there'll be a lot of people will accuse them of... and people have already started to do this without even seeing it. There'll be a lot of people that will accuse Blizzard of taking stuff away from us only to repackage it and give it back to us, but we have to work for it. That would be a massive, massive criticism. It's already a criticism I've started to see form without even knowing it's going to be the case. So I don't think they'll do that. I think just out of wanting to avoid that scenario, they will come up with a lot of different ones. I wouldn't be surprised if the odd little one sneaked in. But the problem then becomes is some of them will just be straight up better than the rest. And how easy is it going to be for us to be able to get those ones? See it more being legendary effects baked in. But Yeah, but as I say, it doesn't matter. Like artifact traits or legendary things, I think they have to be careful about creating a situation where they're accused of regurgitating. Like, I remember in TBC, the very first expansion, Blizzard got a bit of stick because it has to be said, quite a lot of the new armor sets were basically old armor sets with recolors. Like you had the purple Judgment armor and stuff like that. And actually a lot of the new mobs on Outland were basically the same as the mobs in Azeroth, but recolors. Sometimes adding the odd little spiky bit because demon. As well as having new stuff as well. So, you know, it's a stick they can be beaten with. So they won't want that stick to be too big. Like if it's 10% of the traits, maybe that's a little stick. They won't mind that. But if it's 90%, wow. Oh dear. Was his predecessor Metzen? No, Metzen's never been to do with that. His predecessor was that idiot Calgan. Tom Chilton, that was it, wasn't it? I don't like to mix up people's names. I don't always watch certain individuals at Blizzard. There's just certain ones that pop up now and then. It was Tom Chilton, I think. But it was Calgan. It was his character name. Ghostcrawler was the best. Well, you see that. Ghostcrawler had many good things to be said for him. And he was an advocate of bring the player, not the class. However, as a Retribution Paladin, a lot of Ret Paladins will largely consider that he... And I don't think he was anti-Ret Paladin. But I think a lot of Ret Paladins will sort of feel that he didn't really get some things. But his overall attitude was pretty good, yes. And indeed, we will now see how Ian handles his first full expansion, because BFA is 100% his. Again, unless he gets, I mean, for all I know, he gets interference himself. And I bet he does. I wouldn't, you know, I'm sure he gets interference in terms of, he, as a gamer himself, I'm sure he would just love to make decisions from a gameplay point of view. But I don't think he can do that. I think he will also be given responsibility for making sure that from a financial point of view, it all sort of works as well. You know, that's the main reason for time gating content, for example. I think with tier going away, Blizzard could be more creative with armor designs. Well, just because of the cosmetic side of it. Yeah, because they've said there's going to be... There are going to be armor sets associated with each zone and each thing like that. But yeah, plate leather. Yes, you may be right. The downside, I would say, is that they can't make any of those sets very spec specific or class specific. So sometimes you just look at a set and you go, do you know what, that just screams Warlock. They're not likely to be able to produce anything like that either. So I think it may increase their creativity for them, but at the same time it may also cause them to have to, maybe they look at it and think, that looks too much like a Warlock or a Priest one or something like that, whereas it's got to be generic cloth, and maybe they have to think, maybe don't put that in. Wasn't Tom Chilton a song in a rock band? I don't know. Show Celestial on some love. I'll show him all the love he wants now that he's pissed off from World of Warcraft. Now that he's got nothing to do with that. He, you know, I mean, I can disagree with a great number of developers, and I can agree with many of them as well. But the one thing I would not say of anyone other than Celestalon is that they don't care about the game. He didn't appear to care about the game one iota. When you've got BlizzCon coming up, BlizzCon, the biggest annual event where everyone gets ready, all developments on hold, everyone needs to, you know, bang the drum for your company and your job and stuff like that. And you saw other people on Twitter all talking about stuff and really excited about stuff. And he wasn't. In fact, in the run-up to BlizzCon, he was talking about other games, non-Blizzard games. No interest. He didn't say anything about World of Warcraft. Ever. And all right, I now know that at the time he wasn't even working on World of Warcraft, but still, as to the public, to all intents and purposes, he was. Metzen mentioned being a human paladin in Series 12. Yes, I saw that. Oh, sorry. Oh, you're telling me where it originally was. I see. They could do like one different one per class every tier. I don't think they want to do that. I think they've just decided not to. Metzen invented... Did he? If he did. Well, there's a couple of things I could potentially criticise Metzen for, as much as I would not like to at all. Apparently he was fairly anti-player housing as well. So we may, I only say may, have him to thank for the lack of... Do I remember Total Biscuit's WoW news show? No, I think the only news show I've ever watched... You might hate me for this, but the only news show I ever remember watching was Laws on... I can't even remember the name of it. Someone's going to tell me and I will then know. What was it called? Weekly Marmot. There you go. That was it. Yes. So I used to watch that every now and then. I think that was the only one I've ever really watched. Oh no, what have I done? Oh, my mouse has gone a bit funny. Oh my god. I've clicked a function on my mouse and now the sensitivity's gone right down. Oh well, bugger it, I don't really need it. I've never really listened to a WoW podcast, no. Tank Spot, yes. I remember Tank Spot, but I'm not sure. There's a lot of things I don't remember a lot of. Also, anything that was big during Wrath or Cataclysm, I'm not likely to have watched at all. Because... this is doing my head in now. Because I wasn't playing that. In fact, really, I mean, because my World of Warcraft has come in two distinct chunks because of that huge gap that I was away from it. So there was the vanilla TBC very start of Wrath, where I didn't really look up stuff on YouTube at all. Maybe the odd kill video. That was about it. I didn't even upload my own videos to YouTube at the time. I uploaded it to something else. Can't remember. It was like File Planet or something. I don't remember. And then when I came back to it is when I started looking up people on YouTube. So then naturally I gravitated towards the people who were just emerging at that time. What do I think of Asmongold? I think he's quite entertaining. I quite like... The things I mostly like listening to are when he does actually proper serious videos, because I think they can be sometimes quite interesting. In fact, we're getting quite close to a point. Bloody mouse. Oh my God. I need to... Oh, Jesus. We're getting quite close to a point where I'll actually be nicking one of his ideas, because I promised to do this ages ago, but I haven't had the chance yet. So Asmongold did this thing. It was ages ago now. Honestly, it was like half a year ago or something stupid, where he basically went through his bank of some vanilla items, like stuff you can't get anymore. And I remember watching that. I thought, oh, that's a good idea. That's quite interesting. And then I looked at it and I thought to myself, do you know what? I've got a load of stuff in mind that he hasn't got, or that he didn't go through. So I thought I should do my own version of that. But I said I'll do it when I get to 15k subs. But I ain't got there yet. But I am now much closer. I would hope to be by the weekend. So I might do that. Yes, I mentioned it was ages ago. Because I thought, oh, I'll get to 15k subs then that. And then I suddenly got no subs at all for ages. In fact... By the time I do get to 15k subs, it's quite bad. It'll be the longest it's taken me to get 1,000 subs. It'll have taken me longer than even getting my first 1,000. That's how bad it is. How many subs have I got? It's about 14,970 now, I think. Obviously, yes, in fact, it is exactly 14,970. I mean, they can go down as well as up, obviously. It's not like views. You haven't got, they're never banked. But... you know, I would hope. I mean, I don't. It all depends on how many videos I can. You don't get any extra subs without bringing any extra videos out. Do I ever noticed a jump since being in the BFA Alpha? No, I haven't. But then, to be fair, I've only been able to bring out one video which is related to me being in the Alpha, and that doesn't have a load of views either. So it probably will give it a boost. Not necessarily a big one. I mean, you've got to bear in mind, although there's a lot of people out there hungry for information, there's also a lot of people who will be able to generate many more views who can give them it. Like, you know, if you already watch, say, Asmongold preach, Thete and Evital, Balula, Nobble for the lore stuff, you know, by the time you've watched even just those 5, and that's not all of them, you don't really necessarily need to watch anyone else. What made me discover your video was a video correcting the Icy Vein guide. Do you know what? I got a shitload of subscribers out of that one video. That happened during the Legion. I suppose it was being called beta at that point. And yes, I actually ended up with a shitload of extra subscribers from that one video. But at least it ended up with someone sensible writing it after that. Crandall copied it. Yeah, well, I mean, I will credit him. Obviously, you don't just straight off nick someone's idea. At the same time, it's not like trademark stuff that I'd be nicking. So, I think he'd be all right with it. It's not like me suddenly starting to do a drama time or something like that, which would be more of a piss take. I don't think it's a hugely original idea, but it's original enough that, you know, I will sort of say it's based on his idea. But that sort of thing I quite like, you know, or when he's just sitting back and just talking, you know, just talking about the game or his experience in the game, they're quite interesting. I mean, the very first Asmongold video I ever watched was during MOP. Again, during sort of late Cataclysm MOP was when I started to like find various people to watch. I'm not really interested in transmog. But where was I? Oh yeah. Again, everyone does transmog competitions as well. Where was I? Oh yeah, the very first Asmongold video I watched, someone linked it in Guild, and it was the one in MOP, and it was in Siege of Orgrimmar, so end of MOP, I guess, although before the content drought, and it was on the 4th boss, which was the Shah. Can't remember what the Shah was called, but the Shah boss, and he came up with the absolute classic phrase, because he was basically given it was a tongue-in-cheek DPS guide. Obviously, not to be taken seriously if you're on progress. Otherwise, you know, that'd be bad. But he came out with a classic phrase, mechanics, these are for other people. It was basically how to whore the crap out of the add damage on it as a warrior. Main reason I sub to is I actually talk to people. Well, to be fair, it is quite straightforward. I mean, you imagine, say, you know, I mean, when I stream, there's like a few dozen, if that. That's like a good day. So it's quite easy. Asmongold, on the other hand, you know, when he streams, he gets, you know, up to 12,000 people watching him. So it's not really, to be fair, possible then to respond to everyone. I mean, I imagine to even pretend to be able to respond, he has to like limit it to subscribers only as well. Otherwise, it would just be an endless stream of memes. Well, no, they're not going to have all those people talking, but there are some streamers that do tend to generate a lot more chat, and I sometimes read through it and it's gone. If you type something, it's gone. So the only thing they can respond to is what they happen to see when they're glancing at it. And if it keeps disappearing too much, then there's no chance. This mouse is doing my... I don't know what I've done to it. I know how to fix it, but it'll take time. Most have under 500. Well, way under 500. Oh yes, this is absolutely specially designed for me to be able to talk to viewers as well. This is the sort of stuff I prefer doing as well. Like if I'm streaming my gameplay, which is the majority of my streams, I do that because people have asked me to do it. If I'm in a progress raid, I can only ever look at the chat between pulls anyway. I'm not going to... because I did it once, it was a bad idea. I died. So I'm not going to lose my focus when I'm raiding or I'm actually on a boss. And in terms of other gameplay, I'm not someone who will sit there and just jabber away. You might hear me muttering, but that's because I mutter. That's why I use push to talk, so that my guildmates don't have to hear me muttering on boss. And but you know, if someone says something in the chat, I will respond to it. And if no one says anything, then I won't. I don't think, oh, it's 1/4 of an hour since I've said something, I'd better say something. I'm not going to do that. So it's quite weird. I imagine, I don't know whether it's an actual problem for people who are trying to build up a streaming thing, because once you've got above a certain number, it'll be easy, because there will always be someone saying something, so you can constantly be talking then. But until you get to that point, I imagine people who really want to go at it have to just get into the habit of just jabbering on like they were a radio DJ or something. But you know, that's not my style. I'm not into mindless small talk, really. But yeah, I mean, Asmongold is a different when it comes to streaming WoW, because WoW, I don't think. Obviously, if you want to make it as a streamer, WoW is not going to be your main game of choice, because it's not that entertaining in itself. The only entertainment value I can imagine of watching a WoW stream is in terms of the interaction with the streamer and the fact they're playing a game that you play as well. You know, just actually sitting there watching it, I can't... I mean, I don't know. Different strokes for different folks. But I can't imagine it being that much of... that much interest. But he's way up there. I mean, you look at anyone else that streams, and they get like a couple, like Az gets 200 or 300. McConnell can get like anything from 100 to 800 or something. Preach, I don't know how many actually he gets, because he streams at times when I'm at work, so I don't actually know how many he gets. But then Asmongold is like 12,000. You know, in fact, when he starts streaming, because he doesn't start his stream and then start streaming. He starts his stream and it's just got music in the background. And there'll be thousands of people in there before he even turns himself on. Well, yeah, that's what I mean, Pinky. So watching progress, I can't imagine is all that interesting. I mean, even in a guild like ours, where you're going to get a fair amount of comedy wipes, you know, there's only so many face palms that can be classed as interesting. So Preach is somewhere between 300 and 2,000. Well, there you go. You know, Asmongold is the king of WoW streaming, as far as I can tell. Obviously, I don't follow every WoW streamer, and I watch even fewer. Some people I follow just out of curiosity. I don't actually get time to watch people stream, because if I have time to watch people stream, I also have time to do other things. I occasionally, like if I'm on holiday, like last week, for example, if there's anyone streaming from my point of view after midnight, so that's like getting towards the evening in North America, then I might watch a bit of them. So occasionally I will watch a bit of Asmongold or McConnell. I generally don't watch the others, because they tend to stream probably at times where, if I'm available to watch the stream, I've got other things to do. Asmongold is very stubborn in his views. Well, that's okay. At least you know what you're getting there. That's fine. I don't like, you know, if you look at it as an entertainment thing as well, I don't necessarily think the views matter that much. There's any number of entertainers that I can watch who don't like share my views. I mean, if I only watched entertainers that shared my views, I might have to put up with rubbish musicians and so on. Soda Poppin is a different beast, of course, but Soda Poppin, although plays WoW, he's not known for WoW, is he? He's known for other things. So I think Soda Poppin, obviously he is bigger than Asmongold. but not exclusively through WoW. It's a bit like, I'll say, if you look at like WoW YouTubers, for example. Now, there are YouTubers that have done WoW stuff, and some of them even started exclusively doing WoW stuff, that have over 1 million subscribers. But there are not any exclusively or even predominantly WoW YouTubers that got to 1 million subscribers doing that. You know, the biggest one is probably Nobble. I think he's got 500,000. So it's fairly niche, no matter which format you look at it at, whether Twitch or YouTube. It is fairly niche because you can get a lot more of that for some other things, even some other games. So Soda's gone more the variety route. Yeah, absolutely. So that's what I mean. You know, so although he's known for WoW, because, you know, I think when he started, I mean, he was predominantly doing that. But certainly now he's not. He does all sorts of things now. He started off playing WoW, yeah, and then, as you say, they're branched out because that's how you're gonna get much more interest. Oh my God, this mouse! Seriously, what did I do to it? What did I do? This comes of not actually knowing what all your buttons do. I don't actually know what most of the buttons do. I'm going to have to reset it. I'm going to have to change all the sensitivity settings to max or something. I can't move over to anything else. Oh my God. That's why I'm horrified to start streaming. No one wants to watch the spam, corruption, and Agrimar ads, so I'm going to try and start during a new game release it can take seriously. Well, if you wanted to get into streaming, yes, you could absolutely do that. I was just thinking if I was going to go through some of the things I was going to do on the mailbox, because I had to miss out the mailbox this week because I was quite ill on Sunday. And then I don't even have time to do the stuff I want to get done on the alpha stuff this week. I'm trying to think. I might get a chance to do a video tomorrow. Well, I'll have to do WoW Flash tomorrow, actually. So they will at least get that done. So I suppose Thursday, with the next chance I've got some. Well, the thing, in my case, I don't think the sort of games that are going to be more viewer-friendly, more entertaining from that point of view, I don't really like them anymore. You know, so I really don't like MMOs and RPGs and stuff like that. In fact, the only non-MMO game I'd ever even think about playing at the moment is Baldur's Gate 2, which I return to every couple of years, but that's not at all interesting to stream. You post videos to YouTube that nobody watches. At least you can. Well, I mean, yeah. I mean, I started posting videos on there just purely for friends and guildies with kill videos. I mean, that's what I got YouTube with. But I only got that. I got it when I returned. I think the reason I got onto YouTube is because I used to upload my videos. I'm pretty sure it was to something called File Planet, but they don't keep the videos on there permanently. So when I returned to World of Warcraft, they'd all gone, and I found that I didn't actually have copies on my computer because I'd changed computers a couple of times since then, and I hadn't retained them. So basically, I've lost quite a lot of my kill videos from TBC. I never did any in vanilla because I was in a guild where other people did them, so I never felt the need. I haven't seen any news on the Warcraft 3 speculation now. There's been a few there's a few interesting comments on that video of people what they think it might be. The thing is, I struggle to believe a simple remaster because it seems to be going to an awful lot of trouble when they could have just announced that at BlizzCon. Or even since. Like, I don't think a remaster is worthy of a big publicity stunt. So I struggle to believe that they won't add something new to it. Because, you know, you can already... I mean, there's people already play the game. Are those people really going to be up for going over to America and publicising it just for a remaster? So I think it has to have something. Even if it's just an extra campaign or something. Still can't believe they sell Warcraft 3, Warcraft 3 The Frozen Throne separately. Well, I didn't know they don't, but that would surprise me if that's the case. Mobile app? Actually, I'd not thought of that. That's possible, isn't it? What would it be like? I suppose you could adapt it for a mobile phone. Maybe. Never know, maybe. That would be significant enough. Not something, as I say, not something I would look forward to because I'm not interested in playing games on a phone. But, yeah, maybe. I'd still like to think that it's updated with a new campaign. Like a new expansion. Yes, Blizzard did put out hiring notices from mobile IP. Yeah, they did. Indeed. And when they did, that was where I started to fear. I started to fear that, oh no, the next Warcraft game's going to be on a bloody mobile. I still have a little bit of that fear. I would be less... Yeah, if it turns out that they were just thinking of Warcraft 3 for the phone, then... No, I cannot abide... Like, the thing is, I'm a PC gamer. Again, I had a student today asking me what sort of games I play. You know, PC, Xbox and stuff like that. I said, well, I only play games on a PC. I will only play them on a PC. I will not play console games. The only times I've played console games is when I used to go around to, when I was younger and go around to a friend's house for like parties and stuff like that. And you end up pissed up like at 1 o'clock in the morning playing Tekken on someone's PlayStation. That's the only time I've ever played console games. I don't like them. I don't like the controls. So I'm, you know, PC for me is where it's at. And I don't know what I would do if ever the gaming market shifted away from the PC for any aspect of gaming. Well, I suppose £7 for the base and £7 for the expansion isn't that bad. But yeah, it does seem strange that they would be separate. Unless, of course, it's just a business decision where it's like, well, we reckon we can, you know, we reckon we can get more people to pay £7 for each than £14 in one go, maybe, or dollars, or you just say pounds actually. Something to place it on. Who plays with their phone on the toilet? I've never understood this. I don't get it. Like, do you know what happened yesterday? Some of you may know this. Yeah, if you were watching me stream yesterday, I relayed this back on the stream. So I was doing the Horde, Alpha on Horde, but I'm listening to Discord for the raid in case I need to come in. And what had happened was there was a particular pull where pull timer was done, and the other officers, the mage, was basically saying, not ready, and they pulled, and it's like, I'm not ready. So obviously instant wipe, as Agramar Mythic. And they were going, you know, so what they'd done, they said that they clicked not ready, fair enough, but this is the guy who puts the feast down, and the guild leader saw that he'd put the feast down, so assumed that he must be ready now, because he's put the feast down. So he put the pull timer on, but he hadn't. He was apparently on the toilet, and he'd managed to put the feast... Who even does this? He'd managed to put the feast down because his phone was linked to his PC. So he was able to do that via the phone. I don't even know who sets that up, but that's what he'd done apparently. So he saw the pull timer going off and he sat on the bog, not even able to communicate this fact, just seeing it. But I don't know who plays about with phones on toilets. It's no wonder so many phones end up down the toilet. I mean, I keep seeing to my students the number of students who have broken or cracked screens, things like that, and I'm thinking, I've had a phone, different phones, for quite a lot of years now. I've never managed to break my screen or any part of the phone. A little bit of paint has worn off here or there on some phones that have had them, or a bit of the enamel type thing. I've never had any phone broken or even dropped. I don't understand how it happens. iPhones, well, people that get iPhones deserve everything they get, quite frankly. But even then, if you don't drop them, they still can't break, surely. I do not drink enough, no. I do, but I don't, if you see what I mean. My younger days of drinking to excess are long gone. I don't do. I've got enough wrong with me at the moment, without adding alcoholism to it as well. So yes, it's a good long time since I've drunk to excess, and I don't intend ever to do so again. In fact, I know I won't. Because I used to be really stupid about it when I was at university. I was like proper laddish idiot. Like, you'd go to the pub, you'd arrange to meet at the pub with other students, and like if they got there before me, because I'd just come out of lectures, they'd already been there half an hour. This is so stupid as well, brainless in fact. I would like say to them, which pint are you on? If they said the third, in order to catch up, I would buy 3 pints. I would down 2 of them and then carry on with the third to keep up. It was just stupid. Going to the bog without your phone is worse than doing the business and realising there's no toilet paper. How can that possibly be worse? Do you know what? I can't imagine anything worse than going to the toilet, needing toilet paper, and then realising there's no toilet paper. That's like my nightmare. It's never happened because I always check first. But that is like one of my nightmares. Dropped your iPhone from a 1-foot coffee table and broken. It's just pathetic. Why do people buy these things? Doesn't the latest one cost like £1,000 or something as well? The iPhone 10 or something. So let me get this right. It bends in your pocket and it costs £1,000. And you've got wireless earphones, which if you lose them, you have to pay hundreds for that as well. Actually, my first laptop, when I got my first laptop many years ago now, a big brick of a thing. But at the time, it was an absolute beast. And the thing that made me decide between the two models was one of them basically had the boast that this thing survived the drop test. In reviews it says it survived the drop, which basically means someone dropped it from like shoulder height and it lived. And I thought that'll do me. And I tested it myself. It was a bit bloody stupid because it cost a lot of money. A lot of money. In fact, in today's money, it costs more than any computer I've ever bought. More than I've spent a lot on this thing here. But in terms of like for like, not as much as that thing cost me. It did survive though. But I don't know why I tested it. I should have just taken the word for it. Have I read all the rumours of Draenor Orcs being alliance? Well, we were talking about that earlier, but no one has yet given me a reason why people even think this is true. Because I think that it's fanciful in the extreme. If you gave me a big list of 10 completely madcap rumours, that would be the least likely of any of them. That is a proper April the 1st message from Blizzard. Because I don't know why are people even thinking this, seriously. Kulturan join the Horde. Well, that's definitely not true. That's certainly not going to happen. Orc Paladins is a lot better than Tauren Paladins. I'd far rather have Orc Paladins. I'd far rather have almost anything than Tauren Paladins. And as I say, I'm not against Tauren specifically. Like I say, they're fine as druids. They're okay for that. They're just not Paladins. Oh, this mouse. Never mind. But no... I mean, because that's the other. I mean, that is the other thing, of course. When they do bring out Draenor orcs, and people keep seeming to think, although maybe I missed this, that Blizzard suggested that they'd be ready when it comes out, which is possible, I guess. But then there obviously has to be an alliance one to go with it. Now, Kulturan humans is, I suppose, an obvious case there. You see more and more Void Elf hunters in your order hall. I'm not surprised. You know, I quite... The thing I like most about Void Elves, I suppose I should say, is, doing the Tolkien thing, is that they can play almost any class a gnome can play. So it's an absolutely brilliant scheme to try and get gnomes to re-roll. And... to prevent the birth of more future gnomes. So I'm very positive about Void Elves. Would the Vrykul be alliance since they're human? Yeah. Well, they're more than human here. They are human. Humans in Warcraft lore descended from Vrykul. So there's a direct link there. So as Diablo has just said there. Of course, that also means that the Forsaken were descended from Vrykul, so they have basically a foot in both Horde and Alliance camps. Because they turned into humans in Lordaeron. At Tyr's hand, in fact. Void Elf female model looks a bit like Sylvanas. Oh, Sylvanas certainly doesn't look like the undead NPCs, but then she's supposed to be a banshee as opposed to just a straight up raised body. Like, as people pointed out before, technically she's not killed, sort of. It's weird. It's not like she died and then was raised up, as the Forsaken mostly are. You know, she was turned into a banshee from being a living elf. Because as people point out, in the actual cutscene in Warcraft 3, where Arthas does that, she's talking continually through the whole process. So she never actually even loses consciousness. But I don't know that they look particularly like her other than the purple face. And obviously fairly elf-like features. I mean, that's another difference. Most of the Forsaken essentially seem to be undead humans as well. Like residents of Lordaeron. So she's different in that she's a banshee. But more corporeal than most banshees tend to appear. And also an elf. My ideal next allied race. I think the Horde should get leper gnomes. See how they like it. See how many people play Horde then. When it's a choice between two evils. It'll probably happen at some point. You know, if they, you know, If they're going to do allied races as being essentially... Because allied races, you've got to bear in mind, like people keep talking about Vulpera and things like that. It's never going to be them. Because the whole point of allied races is they're of races that already exist. Even though Blizzard won't call them sub-races, but I think that's largely just because of the racials thing. They are... All the allied races are of races that already exist in the game. They just look a bit different. So... Whatever it happens to be, I mean, it could... Obviously, the favourite's got to be, along with Draenor Orcs, Kulturan humans. But I don't think we'll ever see an allied race that doesn't already exist as a playable race. Because then that doesn't seem to make sense to me. Even though it's not impossible, the way they've phrased it. Vulpera are goblin skeletons with fur. Not really. They've got narrower faces, haven't they? Same with Tonka. You know, allied races, I think, will be exclusively races that already exist in the game. They just do different variations of them, and bring them in on that basis. Mechanical gnomes, we already have those. It's called Jeeves and Blingtron. They're the good gnomes. They're the gnomes I am perfectly happy to raid with. They repair my gear, I should say, and give me little presents. Undead elves. Not impossible. Obviously, they would have to be Horde, because you would think Sylvanas would be the one with the hand in either befriending the ones that already exist or creating new ones. In which case you just basically have 2 types of undead on Horde, which is possible. High Elves. Is there a significant difference between High Elves and Blood Elves? Realistically speaking. Draenor without tails, wouldn't they fall over a lot? And humans with hairy feet. The High Elves would be alliance, yeah, but well, very likely, possibly at any rate. But what I mean is there any serious difference between High Elves and Blood Elves? Like, cosmetically, I wouldn't have thought there was going to be a lot different. Maybe the colour of their eyes, and that's about it. If that, even that. Also, where would these High Elves be? Where would they currently be located? By adding Void Elves, they basically said they won't give Alliance High Elves. Possibly there is that to it. But I just don't see... I don't really know exactly what High Elves are supposed to be anymore in the game, in terms of in the modern World of WoW. World of WoW, that's a tautology. But I don't see them being fundamentally different to Blood Elves at the moment. Least amount of work? I don't know that that's true, because they could have just done sub-races, as people would have been perfectly happy with, which would have implied just further customization, which could still have been arranged via an unlock. You know, it might still have been an unlock required for them. But yes, but they haven't. So I would argue that the way they've gone requires more work than would have been necessary if they'd just done sub-races. Feels bad because you wanted a high elf as a paladin. Well, I mean, they've opened the door for night elf paladins at some point by actually having a night elf paladin NPC. Do I think there are noticeable differences between High Mountain Taurens and Taurens? There's not. I mean, the horns are obviously different. Other than that, obviously, there's not a huge amount of difference. But between Belfs and Velfs, yes. Between Blood Elves and Void Elves, there's the very significant difference that the Void Elves are purple or green. So, obviously, in terms of what they look like, not a lot at all. You know, the Void Elves have got the hair thing going on, and they're purple or green, which, you know, Blood Elves are not. But that's enough of a difference for me. They don't have to be completely different. I'm sort of okay with basically using the same models, and like, because that's what it's about. It's about offering more cosmetic choices. Like, I'm annoyed that they've done this allied race thing with all the different racials. I didn't want that. I just wanted more cosmetic choice for the characters. Is WoW still filled with every character name ending in Q2? There's still quite a lot of Q2s, yes. I don't know that they're as common as they used to be, but I don't really notice. You don't like the Night Elf model? Oh, that's bad luck. Wouldn't mind a sub-racist clan feature for the Orcs and the Dwarves. Just add a slider in the customization menu. Well, I mean, I would prefer, yeah, just loads of sliders for the customization of various aspects of the characters in line with other games. But, you know, we don't seem to be getting that for whatever reason. Whether it's technical or whether it's just a decision they made, I don't know. Yes, they do have the same dance animations. That's because they are the same models. They've just been cosmetically changed. But that's what allied races are. They're just cosmetic. Except they're not. They've got those racials as well. Hiya, GMD Geek. Oh, you've come back to the game. Oh, blimey, 2011. Blimey, that's a long time. Clipping will never be fixed now. I mean, it can be improved perhaps, but I don't think they'll consider it super high priority. Do I think Draenor Orcs will be tied to reputation? All the others are tied to reputation. I find it difficult to believe that they won't be. However, to which reputation? Not sure. I don't know what they intend to do. Because here's the interesting thing. This is where it could work. Like, at the moment, we know Dark Iron Dwarfs and Zandalari trolls are coming, but they're two totally weird things. Like, at the moment in the game, we've met Dark Iron Dwarfs. They're already established. Zandalari trolls, all right, in vanilla, sort of, a little bit, because I have Zandalari Exalted rep. But I don't. Can you get that? I don't think you can get that anymore, can you? I think that's like a legacy achievement now. But it would potentially make sense if they did bring in Draenor Orcs and Kulturan humans at the same time, because then you've got Kulturan humans and Zandalari trolls, which could have like parallel achievements required, and then you could have Dark Iron Dwarfs and Draenor Orcs, where you have some other achievement. Maybe it's an achievement that's already possible to have achieved because they've both been in the game for ages, or maybe, you know, whatever. But I cannot even begin, unless it's been data mined, but I'm not sure it has, exactly what you need to do for it. Obviously, for Zandalari trolls, it'd be fairly obvious. You will need to complete some achievement for doing at least one of the zones on Zandalar, and you'll need some rep as well. So much has changed since playing Wrath of the Lich King. It is very, very different now, yes. Well, the thing is, you say you don't ever think you could find a foothold. It's probably, I think with each expansion, it does become more accessible for a newer player. The downside, I always think, for a newer player, or someone who hasn't played for a long time, It's just the sheer amount of leveling that needs to be done, because each expansion brings with it more levels, more, you know, to get up there. But in terms of accessibility, when you are at level cap, I think it does improve on that. There's always, with each expansion, more to do from a casual point of view that's quite easy to do. Like, when you played Wrath of the Lich King, there was no such thing as LFR, which there now is. Which is a form of raids where you can just automatically queue up. And in fact, even looking for dungeon was not as sophisticated in Wrath as it was for the very next expansion. Oh, half the helmets on your female dwarf paladins show hair through when you put them on. Well, yeah, hair is a bit of a... Hair and elf eyebrows and ears are a bit of a problem when it comes to helmets. In fact, lots of things are a bit of a problem when it comes to helmets, which is why I very rarely show them. Like, even my captain's hat on my paladin, it makes him look like he's got an actual naval crew cut, when in actual fact he's got hair. It just can't show the hair with the hat. But, you know. I don't think that... Well, I was going to say that's low down their priority list. I don't think it's even on their priority list. I think it's just too much work for them and it's not worth the effort. Maybe move away from the two-leg models and have a centaur-type race. I don't know. People will definitely expect a movement speed boost with such a class, wouldn't they? A race, I should say. A race. Hi, Man of War. Last night you tried making a thread on MMO champions for the Paladins, blah, blah, blah. But your phone wouldn't let you post. Oh, thank you. Yeah, the problem, like, I haven't actually posted on MMO Champion forums for ages. The reason is, I think it's actually quite a good set of forums if you're going to use it every day. The problem with MMO Champion forums is they get a lot of very popular forum threads, which is really good because it shows us a lot of engagement. But they become, all the most interesting posts become really long. And I always fear, if I haven't been reading it for a few days at least, saying something, and then you get the... Because I used to see people, when I used to like go on it every day, and then you'd get people... You'd see people post something, and someone else would go, someone said that 2 days ago. And they'd basically shout them down. I think, ooh, poor sods. Because obviously they have no way of knowing that. It's like, you know, people will say things like, you should have read through the previous thread. It's like, it's 312 pages long. I'm not reading all that. So I always sort of fear going in there and saying something, and then people go, no, someone said that before. Yeah, transmog on a quadruped. Well, they could do it. The worst thing would be mounting on a quadruped. You couldn't like have mounts. Well, you could, but it would be pretty ungainly. A centaur riding a goat or something. No. So, I mean, I know there's obviously a way around it. You could have like the planes running thing, so they are their own mount, but then that prevents them using mounts for cosmetic purposes. And as for flying, well, I don't know. A quadruped wouldn't need a mount, but players like mounts, and so you'd be like having a race that can't use a mount, even if you give it some ability to be able to move 100%. And as I say, you've still got the problem of flying. Like, I don't even know what that would be like. Make the mounts be on top, so it's got to grab them. Not all flying mounts have something to grab them with. Yes, Fellbats. There are some mounts that could do that conceivably, but not all of them, which is the point. You know, you would be restricting those players from being able to, you know, use their mounts. Because, you know, we only need 4 types of mount, really. Well, 5, I suppose. You need a mount for walking on water. You need a mount for swimming fast underwater. You need a yak. You need a ground mount. And you need a flying mount. And even that, you could argue, the flying mount is also a serviceable ground mount. So you don't even need that. So there's 4 or 5 mounts max you need. But there's plenty of people that collect hundreds of them. So there's plenty of people who consider the cosmetic side of it important. Did I notice that you can now hoover upside down? Or do you mean hover? You could hang off with the insert delete. You used to be able to fly upside down, but when you'd stop the game, it would just turn you around. Now you can just stay like that. No, I had no idea about. I've not really initiated in the aeronautics in the game. I didn't really think there were any. In fact, that's the first I've heard of that. Or if I had heard of it before, I've completely forgotten about it. No, I don't think the transmog would be a major barrier to lack of centaurs. It is mounts for me is just the instant no go on it. Like can't mount. Also, the clipping on a centaur would surely be worse than anything that there has ever been. Because who actually believes when you put a cloak on, they're going to make it run down the back of the centaur? It won't. It'll cut through its abdomen. Centaurs for the Horde and Dryads for the Alliance. No. Anyway, aren't Dryads just female centaurs? I know they sort of both... Did they? Hold on. Centaurs obviously derived from the princess and that fella, whose name I've forgotten now, in Moradin. Did Dryads come from the same thing? I've forgotten now the lore on Dryads. I know where centaurs came from. You just realised Zandalari Paladins would get a Holy Raptor mount. Yes, they would. Oh. Blizzard posted something about that MVP thing again. Right. Well, where did the Dryads come from? I can't remember. Oh yeah, the Dryads in Dark Heart Thicket are really annoying. Dryads are daughters of Sonoris, are they? Okay. So they're nothing to do with centaurs then. Like the Keepers of the Grove, Dryads prefer peace but use violence when needed. Well, apparently when needed just means when you go anywhere near them, because they always attack me before I attack them. No one said Cenarius had to be celibate. They are curious, but only a few leave the forest. Rubbish. They're all over the place. In fact, I don't think I've ever seen a dryad in the forest. I've seen them in Moradin. I've seen them in Darkheart Thicket. I'm not saying there aren't any in the forest, but that's where I've seen them. No, they've not had anything interesting to say on that one. Yes. Well, they were a bit further away from Teldrassil, weren't they? I mean, I don't know why I did the quests in Desolace in Vanilla, if I'm honest. Because I hated Desolace as a zone, and I hated Moradin as a dungeon. Being the children of Cenarius, they have shared ancestry. Well, they only have shared ancestry with the Centaurs in that the Centaurs came from a union between Princess Doofa and that... I've forgotten his name. Was he like Cenarius's brother or something? Don't remember. He was uncle of someone who sent you. I forget the names. But basically this thing that's like Cenarius but not, and that princess who is like the daughter of Therazane, they had babies, and those babies were centaurs. You hate all the desert stroke horde zones with an exception of Kazan. No, I used to really like Tanaris. I used to look forward to going to leveling Tanaris, which I don't do anymore because you don't really need to now. But at the time, you know, vanilla TBC, when I was making most of my alts, I loved it. As soon as I got to around about level, I think it was about level 40 was a good time to go there. You could do it a bit, was it? I think it was about then that was a good time. You could do it a little bit earlier, I think. I used to head straight over to there. Couldn't wait. Zatar, yeah, that's it. That was his son, Arius' son. Okay, fine. But yes, that's right. The Cenarius-like guy mode is actually in love. He was in love with her, yes. But it didn't work out. And he died. I think he was killed by his own centaur offspring. But again, I'm very hazy on the details now. I used to know. How the humble raced elves are an alliance. I don't think night elves are all that humble, if I'm honest. To be fair, all of the night elf leaders have all been fairly obnoxious characters. So I'm not sure we can really describe night elves as humble. I'm also not sure you should really describe void elves as humble either. I'm not really sure I'd consider any elves as humble. Tyrande is the most obnoxious of the lot, quite frankly. She's I can't think of anything nice to say about Tyrande. Norns, don't think there's any such race, Kisasha there. Don't know what a Norn is. But Tyrande killed her own people. She threw a strop when Malfurion said she shouldn't release Illidan. Her wardens wouldn't release her, so she killed them. Like, I don't know how she's still leader. Attuned and respectful to nature. Doesn't mean humble though, does it? I mean, those wardens were part of nature that she killed. Well, the argument could be held that void elves are rejects, not, you know, that didn't make them humble. They're rejects simply because they were arseholes to everyone else. So basically, yes, the centaurs are the grandchildren of Cenarius, and the dryads are his children. That's fine. I'm perfectly happy with that. All the elves are fairly snotty, really. Individual elf characters, some of them may be fine. But, I mean, Liadrin is now much more humble than she was. Obviously, she's learnt to behave herself as a paladin. But I think elves in general, I don't really no. I mean, trolls are more humble than they are, and you can imagine elves being fairly haughty because they were around before the younger races, which is basically most of the other races. But trolls were around before them, and the trolls, although, all right, there's certain factions of trolls still see Azeroth as theirs. There's other ones who are a lot more humble than the elves have become. Elves are descended from trolls, indeed, yes. I haven't done the Nightborn unlock quest, but I have done the Void Elf unlock quest, and it was made fairly clear in that their presence was not required in Silvermoon City, yes. Well, all elves have a common ancestry. They only splintered. They splintered ultimately because of magic. So, magic attracted demons to Azeroth. So, one bunch of elves decided that dabbling in the arcane wasn't a good idea, and they became night elves. And the other group of elves decided it was a bloody good idea, and they ended up becoming high elves. And then some of those basically ended up becoming blood elves. And obviously some of them then became void elves. And I'm not sure where Nightborn fit into it exactly. I mean, you know, I guess that was very much in... I do a WoW lore series on YouTube. I'm sure Novels covered it all. The only lore... I mean, the only lore videos I'll do is where it relates to some PvE content. So I did do an Archives of Warcraft series on dungeons and the stuff behind them, just as I'm going to be doing one on raids as well, but that's on a less frequent basis. That's like one a month. What's my favourite WoW novel? I can't really say because I haven't read them all. I've probably only read about half of them. And the other problem is I don't fancy reread. Normally I'd quite like to reread things that I've read before. I do quite a lot of rereading of novels, but I can't bear to read them anymore because I keep thinking to myself, like, if I go back and reread all the WoW novels and maybe read some that I haven't read before, I'll be thinking to myself, is this even valid anymore? Is it even canon? Because, you know, some things they've retconned, which I don't really like. I wish they were a bit more consistent with their lore. I think WoW's evolutionary pathways make a lot more sense than Tolkien's. Well, I don't think it's supposed to make sense. In either case, it's fantasy. But I'm perfectly happy with Tolkien's system, because with Tolkien's it was done by design. Am I going Horde in BFA? God, I hope not. Jesus, no. I mean, I may have to make a Horde character just to do, because for the first time in ages, we're actually getting different quests for Horde and Alliance. So to experience everything, you're probably going to have a Horde character. Don't I want to be on Horde side just to be able to slay gnomes in PvP? No. Where's the challenge in killing gnomes when, you know, you can just go up to them and whack them on the head? No, 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 no. It's subtlety. What's really cunning is when you get to kill a gnome in your own raid and not get blamed for it. It used to be a lot easier to kill gnomes, actually, in vanilla. I used to be a master at it. In Molten Core in particular. You'd be on trash. You'd wait for some gnome to be on second on threat behind the tank. You would just wait until you knew they were second on threat. And then you would bop the tank and they'd go over and smash the gnome in. Didn't work on frost mages because they had ice block. But it worked everything else. Have I done the WoD Frostfire Ridge quest on the Horde side? Yes, I have. Because I have been Horde in WoD. I was Alliance for half of WoD and Horde for the other half. In terms of time, not in terms of content. Also, when I did WoD Beta, I did both Horde and Alliance as well. So, I did both anyway. I quite like the Shadow Moon Valley quest line. I like that. And there were a couple of really good things in Shadow Moon Valley. One was the, jumping up the little steps thing hidden to find that Hypno Toad. Or Hypno Croak as it was talked about. Or called, I mean. And then the other thing was, of course, the cinematic at the end of Shadow Moon Valley was way better than the cinematic at the end of Frostfire Ridge. No, I liked WoD questing. I've liked all the levelling stuff, really. But I particularly like the WoD questing. It's only Talador I wasn't keen on. But I was perfectly happy with the fact that in Talador, the main quest line didn't take very long to do. And then you could basically leave it. Yes. I think it was called Hypno Croak, the actual version in WoW. But it was quite good because it actually... I mean, there was an advantage of not having flying. Because you did actually have to... It was quite tricky to get to it. It was quite a nice little terrain puzzle. I found it better to do it with a mixture of... Some bits of it you'd need to jump across on a mount, or it made it easier to do so anyway. Some bits of it was really bad to do on a mount. So you had to do it by foot with movement speed or stuff. So it was all pretty good. WoD was the best levelling and questing. I'm not sure about the best. I did like the levelling though. I couldn't really fault it. There was a lot of good things it added as well. The idea that quest items, quest rewards, could randomly upgrade, so from green to blue or to epic, or from blue to epic, that was really good. I liked that. That was a very, very good touch. No, I didn't cheat my way up. So you could climb the mountain and disengage inside the cave. No, I went up properly. I was a paladin. Mop questing was also quite good, but again, there was a zone I didn't like, and that was the Karasang Wilds, whatever it is, the bit in the south. Wasn't keen. I stayed well clear of that, really. Was Mop the best expansion for paladins? I don't know, because a lot of people say Wrath was. But I didn't really play much of Wrath, so I can't really say. You're a new player, you flat out hate WoD. Need 1 month of rep grinding on dailies to get flying. Oh yeah. That was... The fact that they don't just let you have flying now that WoD is no longer the current expansion is just ridiculous. It's petty. It just seems to me petty. I don't understand why they would do that. Well, the other thing, yeah, with WoD is with flying, even when it was current, see, it was dropped as a bit of a bombshell that we wouldn't get flying. So that caused a lot of trouble. I suppose when at least Legion came out, we knew what the deal was with flying. So it was a bit better. 5.2, would that have been the Isle of Thunder? Was that Isle of Thunder? It would have been, wouldn't it? That was, yeah, that was pretty good. The fact that, you know, every so, you know, with time, that more and more of the island became accessible. That was quite a good feature. You've got the Lawmaster Award treasures, explored every zone, played the content. But you've got to get the reps. Well, they shouldn't have to do anything when it's not current. Like, I understand why they wanted people to do that while it was current. Even though a lot of people will disagree. I'm sort of okay with it. But the yeah, when it's not current, it's a complete arsehole. It's a bit like, you know, a lot of people, I think there is another way to get one now, actually. But the Azure Water Strider, which is such a useful mount, which they were going to ban in Legion until, again, there was a bit of a backlash. They don't seem to understand the attachment people have to mounts in this game. And it used to be the case for a while that the only way to get that mount was in MOP, which, of course, that needed rep grind as well. Throne of Thunder was the birthplace of Titan Forging. Yeah. I mean, it wasn't such a big deal then. It was Thunder Forge just up one thing. You know, was it 5 item levels or something? It wasn't too bad then. The funny thing was, is I remember it was quite hilarious at the time. I used to watch Preach quite a lot of the time. And basically, Blizzard announced this thing. Something was coming that was going to encourage more people to do 25-man raiding as opposed to 10-man. And he was saying, oh, you know, you definitely want to go 25-man raiding. I definitely want to go it because there's going to be this thing and it's huge. And it turned out the thing was Thunder Forging had a better chance of dropping in 25-man. There was not exactly an exodus over to 25-man raiding. They want us to use underwater mounts, not walk on water mounts, but they won't make them faster. Well, tough. We want walking on water. The thing I found baffling though, there's a particular part in Legion Alpha where they were saying, right, we're not going to let the Azure Water Strider work on Broken House. And the reason Ian Hazakostas gave, because it's when he started doing his like Q&As, he says it's because everyone just uses the same mount, the Azure Water Strider. Well, yes, of course, because it's a good mount. and he didn't like the fact that people didn't feel they could use the mount they wanted. But the real irony was, there was a ring you could get at that time in Legion Alpha, which allowed for water walking. So if you wore this ring, you could water walk. If you were mounted with this ring, you could water walk. So he said the reason they didn't like it was because of the lack of variety. And so then he relented and allowed the Azure Water Strider to work in Legion again, but they took away the ring. The thing that would have allowed people, if they wanted to wear that ring while they were mounted, to use whatever mount they liked. I don't know. I'm almost finished my hell as it happens. We'll give it 5 more minutes. It's already gone over. The biggest irony is how the Mage Tower building on the Broken Shore can give you water walking. Water walking with a fishing rod. I still haven't got that. I need to do my bucket list for Legion, actually. At some point. Because there is a danger now that I don't do anything else. Because like I'm thinking, so I'd started levelling the Void Elf. Obviously, I've got to carry on doing that. I've still let Diablo. I've started doing that North American Paladin. Obviously, I'm not going to carry that on anymore. I'm just going to level boost it. Because all the spare time I now get spent in WoW is going to be spent in the bloody Alpha, isn't it? So, yes. You need every single mythic raid mount before BFA hits. There's not that many of them. In fact, are there any of them? There's only like... Gul'dan had one. I don't even know. What drops off Argus? Does he drop one? I don't even know. Underlight Angler gives you the fastest swim form in the game. I mean, there's a fishing rod you got in Wrath, which I still carry around from the Walrus people, that gives you underwater breathing. I thought that was always quite nice. I got into the alpha before you. Well, Safian, the thing is, there doesn't seem to be any waves at the moment, at any rate, for cutting edge raiders, because you've got to bear this in mind. So you've got cutting edge now. Exorsus got world second. There are no Exorsus members in the alpha. Not one of them. And they're world second. Well, to be fair, there was no raid testing when they brought in the cutting edge waves in Legion Alpha either. There weren't even many dungeons. There weren't even many specs, because I got in on that wave. There were about half a dozen specs, I think, as I recall. Oh yeah, now that you say that, Keru, I actually do remember what the Argus Mythic Mount looks like. I remember that. But no, so I don't know what they're going to do, if there even is going to be a wave where they invite like cutting edge raiders in like they did in Legion. I don't know, because like I find it baffling. Like Exorcists themselves are not very happy about it. You know, they were saying on Twitter, not even their influencers have access. The Argus mount is made of dead Draenors included but not limited to babies. Yeah, it's a bit grim, isn't it? It's a bit macabre. But anyway, I think with that, I'm going to call an end to it there, because we've gone on for like nearly 2.5 hours again, as usual. In fact, I think it virtually has been 2.5 hours. So I'll put this up on YouTube, obviously. I'll put it up fairly quickly. I've been recently just doing a thing where I start it at the right time and finish it at the right time, so I don't have to render it. I just slap it straight on there. So that should go up fairly quickly. And I'm going to try and make myself something for lunch tomorrow and try and get some sleep, because I'm knackered, because I had to work late again today after being ill for a couple of days. So I'll be on tomorrow. I don't know what we're going to be doing in the stream. So I know we're going to be doing like the guild. We've got some people missing, and a lot of people were of the mind in my guild not to clear Mythic Farm. I think they're wanting to extend, but that won't be tomorrow, so I think we're going to be doing futile things tomorrow, like maybe heroic and then maybe a chosen run. But I've already got chosen, so I'm not particularly keen on doing that. I will threaten, if I'm in on that, to kill gnomes. I will kill any gnomes that I can. I know ways to do it as well. The way you do it is on the Hell You Trash. It's easy then. Easy. But anyway, so last one then, Keru. How do I know if you're ready to do mythic raiding? First of all, are you very, very comfortable with heroic raiding? If you're super comfortable with heroic raiding, then you're ready to do mythic raiding, as long as you've got the right attitude. But anyway, I'm going to call it a day there. Thanks very much for coming on, and until next time, I will see you later.